So, good morning again. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, judges, Leslie, Cam. I was trying not to have to name you, but thank you. We're judging the landscape category now, and I have Fru assisting me again. She's doing a great job. And Steph over here is running all the sound for the whole weekend. So, thank you very much. He's right here, yeah. And on this panel of judges, we have Julie Ewing, Darren Dew, Melissa Anderson, Leslie Downey, Tony Holden, Adam Hourigan, Cameron Attry, and Chris Anderson. And to let you know a little bit about the landscape category, it's for landscape images that depict the natural or environment. Entries may be interpretive. In other words, they need not be a literal image of a scene. Judges in this category are asked to consider both traditional and contemporary values, camera technique, print quality, composition, and light. It's going to be judged in two sections, and first off we will have the open landscape section. Entries may utilize all post-production techniques, including the use of multiple images or elements to produce the entry. So I will read out the single capture criteria when we get to that section. So we're starting with judging the landscape open section. And can we have the first print, please? Thank you. And we have an average score of 71. Leslie, could we have a comment from you, please?
Yeah, sure. I think in this instance, the use of the double exposure is not working to its full capacity, and I feel there's too much foreground that's not giving the scene. Well, there's just too much foreground so that your eye is drawn to that instead of the actual subject in the background.
And next print, please. Thank you. Shmeen's going a bit slow. We have a silver award 81. And Chris would like, he's on 88. Chris, you're working with an 83 and two 83s and a 75, 74.
All right, got some work to do. When this print turned around and we all sat and had a look at it for about 5 seconds, which is a really good start for a print like this. It's a beautiful abstract representation of something. And that's what I wanted to know. And I went up to the print and had a look and no idea what it is. And I was looking through all the detail trying to figure out what has made this print, where the color has come from. And I can't tell. So I started looking at, okay, so let's see if it's sharp and what's the texture like. And there's a lot of grit in it, and it's not always sharp, and it's sharp in places. And I think things that would normally detract from a landscape where you want the sharpness and you want everything to be clear, because this is so abstract and the color flow through the image is so beautiful, I don't mind about any of that stuff. So I'm fully drawn in by the sweeping lines that go through it from left to right, top to bottom. Your eye starts on that left side and makes its way through and then journeys back again. It's a really pleasant image to look at, and I feel like this is the kind of thing I could have on a wall and look at it every day and see something different. So for me, it just gave this amazing feeling that I really want to reward with the silver distinction, and I'd love to hear some other opinions
Thank you, Chris. We're going to hear from Tony on 74.
Yeah, look, I the more I look at this, the more I'm drawn in. So correct, Chris. I probably was a bit harsh with my score, and it's drawing me in further and further. I look at it, so I will probably go up.
Leslie, a brief comment to add?
Yes, for all those reasons that you've said, Chris, I've given it an 83. To take it into silver distinction, which is asking for professional excellence and superior, I don't feel we have got an extra element which is rewarding us with a wow factor. What we have here is beautifully crafted. Yes, all of those things that you said, you know, the patterns, the ambiguity, the mystique, the mystery, I don't know, but hey, it's a great image. But there's nothing there that's just sort of giving me another little element that sort of is going to pull me into silver distinction. And what has it got, 81? Yeah, I don't think I could go to silver distinction, but it's a great image.
Thank you. Back to you, Chris.
That's all right. Okay, that's really good comments, and I appreciate all that. As far as the element, the little extra bit to draw you in, I feel like if there was that extra element that was a specific point of interest, that would detract from the abstract feel of this. That would draw your eye to that one piece, and it would become about that. And it's not about any one thing for me. This is about a feeling and an abstraction. So for me, that lack of extra element, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm quite comfortable where it is. I would love to see, it's got a silver already, which is great. I'd love to see you guys come with me to silver distinction.
Thank you, Chris. Chris's score of 88 is in. The current average score is 81. Judges, please rescore now. Thank you, and it goes to silver with 84. Thank you. Every point can be valuable. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 76. And Leslie would like to challenge. Leslie's on 83. You've got a 76, 75, 74, 73.
Yeah, landscape category. Landscapes have foregrounds, midgrounds, backgrounds, and a focus point. And what I'm enjoying here is an image which is going a little bit beyond that, because it has all of those things. Great foreground, taking you through to the rock on the right, so your eye reads from the left round to the rock, up to the trees, across over to that magnificent building. So compositionally, it has been very well crafted. But the other thing which I love is going beyond that, that you've got the beautiful background just sort of sitting there. It's all very, very pin sharp. The superb lighting coming from the left, highlighting all those lovely textures in the rock. And I can imagine myself standing there feeling this. So landscape photography is also about the feeling that you get when you're standing there in it, and I can feel myself there. The colour palette is beautiful. The print quality appears to me to be well crafted, and I would like to see our other judges consider this because of all of those elements that I've
Thank you,
said, which
Leslie.
I feel is a little above.
Thank you. We'd like to hear from Julie on 73.
I'm interested to listen to Leslie's view on this print, because I found it actually too confusing with it all being so sharp, and I wasn't sure where to look, to the rocks to the front, to the right, to the left, the back, what have you. It is a beautiful scene. I felt like even though there is a lot in it to see, I would have liked one more thing in it, so just something to bring some life to the area. But I am listening to talk me up a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Cam on 76.
Yeah, I find the foreground a little distracting as well, and the composition didn't quite work for me in terms of how close it's cropped to those rocks in the foreground and the rock on the right. I think they need a bit more breathing space. I think there's sort of a shot there, but it just hasn't been composed quite correctly for me. So happy with a 76, good professional practice.
Thank you. Leslie, back to you.
Yes, landscapes are one of those things. Was when we press the button, you know, we're looking through the viewfinder to get our best composition. We're looking for left and right. We're looking for rule of thirds. You know, we're looking for all those things. And yes, I get what you're saying about, you know, the cropping of that rock on the left and over on the right and having more breathing space. But overall, we're looking at the total image, not just those two things. And so I will reiterate what I said about the composition reading from the bottom foreground around. If that rock on the right-hand side had not been the elevation, we wouldn't have had a point to take our eye right back to the building in the background. And so I think we've got all of that beautiful circular composition to let your eye come back to the building, the reflection bringing you back down into the foreground.
Thank
so
you,
I think it's
Leslie.
well done.
Thank
and I'd
you.
love to see some silver here for the photographer.
Thank you. Leslie's score of 83 is locked in. The current average score is 76. Judges, please rescore now. And by majority, it gets a silver award at 80. Thank you. Judges, I am going to have to ask you to keep your comments much more concise. We've got quite a lot of work to see here today, and we want to give them all due process. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a silver award 80. And Tony, a brief comment for the entrant?
I think the colour palette is beautiful. I really do. My only question would be that highlight on the horizon on the right hand side, whether that's necessary, whether that you would crop that out or certainly bring it down. But I think the artist has done a good job. It's a good solid silver award.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 74. Cam, can we have a comment from you, please?
Yeah, multiple exposure image, which I think could work in the bottom right-hand corner, but the top sort of left-hand corner and across the top of the image there's really nothing there to really hold the attention so much. So yeah, I think to take it to the next level, we just need to sort of work on this technique a little bit further.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Scores, please, judges. And we have a silver award, 82. Thank you. Leslie, a brief comment?
This image is great concept, and I think all of us got up there and saw it's all been over sharpened, and that's can be a great improvement if that's fixed.
Thank you very much. And we're going to keep our judges rotating. So Cam and Leslie, thank you very much. And we're bringing in Melissa and Darren. Thank you. And next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 84, silver award. Thank you. And Darren, a comment from you, please.
I guess I saw this as a nice take on a familiar subject. The thing that grabbed me was that curved tree, and that really brought me in, and I really enjoyed the delicate nature of the print. Very nicely printed, beautiful.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a silver with distinction, 86. And you're all quite close together, so we'll just get a comment. Julie, please.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful, and I probably would have scored this a gold. Where the road leads off with that fabulous car just above that horizon line, if that wasn't so grey, where I think it has potentially been printed down and lifted a little, I think superb.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Judges. Thank you. We have an average score of 78. You're all quite close together. Melissa, maybe just a comment from you?
I think with this image you could look at certainly your print quality. So, am I on? Yep. Okay. Perfect. So looking at bringing some detail out in the back, look at controlling some of your highlight areas a little bit more, just so that we can actually enjoy the total image. And I think that would certainly benefit the image.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Sorry, can we just have a blank screen, please? I'm sorry to do that. We just want to... Our screen is not happy here. And we can't let... It wouldn't have let you put your scores in. Yes, we're right now. So can we have the print back, please? So judges, just kind of, if you need to go and refresh your viewing perspective of this image and then put your scores in. you, judges. This screen is being very slow. We have an average score of 72. And if we could just get a comment, maybe Chris?
I think the photographers use a really interesting technique for this. I'm not sure that the technique has necessarily strengthened the image or the feeling or the print. I do think it's a technique that's worth continuing to play with, so good job.
Much. Next print, please. Adam, you can stay there. Thank you. We have an average score of 72. And we'll finalise the score at that. And could we just have a comment from Adam, please?
Look, I think it's a scene image of a pattern that we're trying to portray here, which is, presented with, a professional sort of standard, I believe. But there's nothing more in the image. There's no story. There's no sort of change in the light or anything like that that would push me further up into the scoring range. But, professionally presented.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 81. And we will just get a comment from Tony.
Very lovely image. I love the detail in the branches of the leaves. The little droplet of dew is just exquisite. It just gives that little something. My only suggestion to the author would be maybe look at his paper choice, but I think it's a nice nice and a worthy of a silver award.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 70. And could we get a comment, please, from Melissa?
Yeah, I think in this, which I'm presuming is a multiple exposure, really look at the placement. When we're using techniques, we really want to enhance the image and give extra information. So every element is there for a reason. So I think with this image, potentially maybe look at cropping in, maybe look at some of the context why it's there, and look a little bit closer there.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 83, silver award. Julie, a comment from you, please.
Yeah, really a striking image in that having that power pole down in the bottom left-hand corner nailed it for me. I think to make it even better for future presentation, re-looking at the file and printing could enhance it even to a higher echelon.
Lovely. Thank you. Next print, please. Just for... Oh, Tony's off. Thank you. Chris? Oh, no. Who's... Yeah, can you stand in for Tony? Thank you. Thank you. So just for our audience information, if we've got judges hopping up and down and stepping backwards and forwards, that's perfectly acceptable. They don't have to tell us why they're doing that. They may have seen the photo before. They may know the entrant. They may just not want to judge that photograph. It doesn't matter, and we really applaud the judges for their discretion in doing that, because it gives the print the best chance of getting the fairest score. Melissa, yes, I've got it now. Thank you. And we have an average score of 82, which is a silver award. Julie, Julie's on 88. You're working with 2 83s, an 80 and a 78.
Yeah, I think we could score this a little higher. What's interesting is it is pin sharp throughout, which also just adds to it because the trees are with all their branches off. But yet we're given the depth of field by shadowing, where the trees in the foreground are lighter, but they do go off to darker. So despite it being sharp overall, we've got this beautiful sense of depth. But the nailing points in it is the white line, which you see, but then up on that little branch, that little birdie, and then over on another branch, there's another little birdie looking back at him. And just those little extras within this print just give it that extra kaboom. And I think it's absolutely stunning and deserving of a silver with distinction.
Thank you. Darren on 78.
Yeah, I found the treatment a little bit flat. There's definitely all the midtones have kind of disappeared into mush. There's nice highlights and some black shadows there, but I don't know. I don't get a sense of depth in there. Just flat and a little bit just too graphic for me and almost comic-like. Which if that was showing me something new, that would be okay, but it doesn't seem to be. I acknowledge the nice composition. I'm not a fan of the white line myself, but I do love the placement of the birds.
Thank you. We're just going to hear briefly from Melissa.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the silver range at 83, and I'm fairly comfortable there. I agree that my fellow judges have made, I actually struggled with the composition a little bit. I found that there was so many different elements and I couldn't quite resolve it. I'm drawn to the top left-hand corner, to that area of green shaft that comes down, then to the white line, then to the bird. I didn't see the other bird, and then I've got that second section. So I didn't find that I had a nice flow around the image. I was drawn to different sections, and I found that difficult to resolve. In saying that, I recognised it as a silver for the technique and for the creativity involved.
Thank you. It's all been said. Back to you, Julie.
I don't know that I've got too much more to add because I think I said it all before. I still feel that those extra elements in it just add that additional touch to other than just trees. So it makes it more interesting and keeps you engaged with it.
Thank you. Julie's score of 88 is locked in. The current average score is 2. Judges, please rescore now. Thank you. And it goes to 84, Silver Award. Sorry. Thank you, judges. Good conversation. Nice. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tony. Next print, please. Sorry, Melissa, can you just check your score hasn't come through to us? Thanks. Lovely. And we have an average score of 82, Silver Award. Adam, a comment, please, for the entrant.
I'm certainly rewarding the craft of being able to see it and also, find the right lighting conditions that show this off to its best, and what we're presented here. I feel it's a little flat in the print, like a bit more punch, a little bit more impact, but it's well presented and I think well handled, so that's why I had it in the silver.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a judge change. Thank you. Tony, you've been on for quite a while, and Cam, can you come and join us, please? Thank you. And next print, please. Thank you. By majority, we have a Silver Award at 80. you can challenge. Okay. So let's just have a little conversation. We've actually got an automatic challenge because Darren is 12 points away from the average. So it's triggered an automatic challenge. That's why it's not letting you say that, Melissa. And so we're going to have an interesting conversation. We will start with Darren because that's who's triggered the challenge. And then we will hear Melissa next and then from Adam. Oh, no. You're now Tony. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I looked at this image and I wanted to find something that grabbed me. There's a technique added to a scene which doesn't have a lot of interest in, center of interest for me. It's almost like the technique has overtaken the subject. The legs in the top right hand of the frame, I feel they didn't really say anything for me. I can make out what they are, but they're not giving me anything new and telling me anything about the subject of the photograph, which is probably what I'm struggling. I know there's seagulls. I know it's the beach. But it's almost like the technique was added to a situation that was quite banal. The technique's been added to try and make something of it, and by the looks of what the other judges have scored, I've missed it completely. So I can't wait to hear what everybody else has got to say.
Thank you, Darren. Melissa on 86.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting image, which is going to divide a panel, and I think that's why we've got the score ranges that we have. What I have particularly enjoyed, so I put this into the silver distinction, and I think it's a great opportunity to chat, and I'd love to see if I can encourage people to come up a little bit more. What I really enjoy about this image, I'm not looking at this image, I'm looking at this as a piece of art that goes onto a wall. I'm looking at this as a very banal beach scene. That it is very simplistic. This is what it's about. It's about shine, it's about sand, it's about blue oceans, it's about the simple things in life. This is a sort of thing that's going to go up big on the wall. The legs in the background are reference to the seagulls, in my view, is that the legs have that symmetry to the seagulls' legs. And it's looking at humans in terms of the similarities that we have with the seagull. These are the seagull's legs, there's the two legs planted, and the hands, I believe, have been left in there to reiterate the wings of a seagull. So that's what I took on it. I took that this was a beach scene. It was very cleverly done, very out there with technique, but I believe that's to actually present us with an art piece, with something that has a freedom, a rawness. The colour palette is stunning with the complementary colours between the yellow to the blue, how we've chosen to enhance the foreground with the sand, and then we've put the person back into the blue background but complemented it with those legs. And I think the reason that those colour tones have been brought into those legs is to make them similar to the seagull tones of legs, which are kind of those, those grey kind of whatever tone.
Melissa.
So anyway, interesting to chat about, and I'd love to see it come up.
And we want to have a little word with Tony. Thank you. Tony's
This
on
image is-
82.
Yes, you were squawking a bit in line with the seagulls. No, this image is going to polarise people, and I scored it a silver. The more I look at it, the more I do like it. I love the interaction. It's interesting, Darren can't get the human element. I can get the human element. But I think it's a typical landscape scene of a child, kicking up the water to scare the birds away, and just the way that it's been captured in a different manner, and I think we should reward the author. And the more I look at it, maybe I will move with my fellow judge.
Thank you. I think we've had quite a complement of discussion from each end and the centre. The majority score is 80. And judges, having listened to the debate, you are all free to change your score should you wish to. Please rescore now. And we have a silver award, 83. Thank you, team. Good work. Nice to have a chat. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a Silver Award 81. And Julie, could we have a comment from you, please?
Yeah, not the colour scheme you'd expect from this type of scene, but actually I think it was just a really great choice, and it was really delicately done and a beautiful image. So well done.
Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 74. Cam, can we have a comment from you, please?
Yeah, middle of the professional practice. I think I really right-hand side of the image much more than left-hand side of the image. I think it's been handled a lot better. Left-hand side of the image, the blacks are blocking up quite a bit. So if the author could have a look at that.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Scores, please, judges. Thank you. This print score is 78. Adam would like to challenge. Adam's on 83. You've got 3 78s and a 73.
I think I'm drawn. I'm a bit of it evokes a bit of a romanticist sort of story. This image, this beautiful trees sort of up amongst standing tall amongst the night sky or the dusk sky, and straight away we all want to go up and sort of crop that bottom part out. But that's actually all. We sort of look and think, well, what's the bottom bit adding? But to me, that's kind of like the beginning of the story, almost like it's the it's the smaller version of what's in the background. The little rock with the little bit of green and the big rock with the big bit of green sort of standing up tall. And there's something I get a romantic nature about that. The palette is quite saturated, and I think helps to evoke that mood. Perhaps it may not to be to everybody's taste that it's of that saturation, but I feel like it emphasises that kind of almost romantic sort of style that we're getting. I think and looking through into this landscape. So I think just for the storytelling through that palette and through the composition, we can maybe get it to a low silver.
Thank you. Melissa on 73.
Yeah, I did experience the same when I went up, and I did feel that same romantic nature. It does have that level of communication. The areas that I struggled with, I want to crop this image. Compositionally, I'm really struggling with it. I want to crop the left-hand side because to me, I'm constantly brought forward. So we've got the darkness of the cliff with the trees going on it, but then I'm brought forward and contrasted with the green rock that I've got so much colour and saturation and darkness back in that rock. I really feel the competition between those. And then I go to the edge of the frame to that little tiny out cliff. So for me, I'd love to see it cropped, that left-hand side completely out. I do enjoy the romanticism, but I just feel compositionally I'm just drawn, and that's why I've put it in the professional practice area.
Thank you. We're going to hear from Darren on 78.
The technique was really interesting. I don't mind the saturation. I think adds a bit to it. That big hole on the bottom left-hand corner of the picture for me just is the thing that I think that these attempts at cropping is trying to solve. And for me, always there's usually just one spot to shoot a landscape from, and it wasn't this spot. It was just a little bit to the right or something like that to actually make more of that rock in the foreground and repeat what Adam's, or kind of exaggerate what Adam's saying. And so that put it in professional practice rather than into award standard, because that's kind of what we should be aiming for is making sure we get that right in camera with that positioning. And
Thank you. Back to you, Adam.
Yeah, certainly. As I said, it has compositional challenges that we can go and crop it and otherwise. I did like that sort of the central placement and then the jarring of that off to the right. I think if we crop it from the left, maybe we may be better in a traditional rule of thirds kind of composition that we'll get inside, but then maybe we'll lose that sort of dominance of that middle figure as well. So I'm rewarding the author just for the braveness of showing us this little bit through the saturation, through that little bit of incorporation of what they've got there. And I think we can get it to a low silver, please.
Thank you. Adam's score of 83 is locked in. The current average score is 78. Judges, please rescore now. And we have 80, silver award. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 83, silver award. And Melissa would like to challenge. She's on 88. You've got an 83, 84, 82, and a 77.
Okay. There's something really beautiful about the shapes and the symmetry in this image. The composition, the anchoring of the dark sail that complements the sails on the Opera House, that complements the sail material of the umbrella, that one figure in the background, that tiny little figure just to anchor our composition. The weighting of it is beautiful. That darkness balances the right-hand side with the structure. I like the almost lithographic background of the Opera House from being photographed in the rain. This has such an interesting presence, that perfect symmetry of the yacht, where the mast is absolutely just sitting perfectly symmetrically under that apex point of the sail. And I think for me, this is again a decisive moment. All of the elements are there. I enjoy the print handling, and I see this sitting as a silver distinction, and I'd love to encourage some people up.
Thank you. Let's hear from Cam on 77.
Thanks, Melissa. I actually agree with all of that. I love it compositionally. The thing for me was I love the treatment of the sail in the foreground and how deep those blacks are, and I wanted to see that repeated in the sails of the Opera House. The black areas in there are just so muddy and grey. I wanted to see that really deep and make it a much more contrasty and graphical representation, and that would have got me right up to silver distinction or possibly even considering gold. But maybe I was a little bit harsh at happy to come up to a silver, but yeah, I need some more convincing.
Thank you. Adam's on 82.
And I'm really glad because you've both described what went exactly through my mind. It's like it's too flat, but it's got this great lithographic quality, but it's too flat. You know, and I swapped between them so much. But the more I look at it, the more I keep looking at those blacks, and there's still great detail through that you know it's the Opera House, and it gives you all of that mood of that rainy day that you're rewarded with by that bottom left figure. Like that's the payoff that you go flat, but of course it's flat because look, there's the guy with the umbrella down there. It must be raining. It evokes that mood, and I kind of think that it may well dominate then that really lovely black figure that we're all really enjoying in the front. So that no, I've made my mind up, and I'll come up. And I thank you for the argument.
Thank you. Back to you, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Cam. Cam, I'd reiterate what Adam has just said. I think it needs, it's almost like the black is the foreground, the Opera House is the middle ground, and the back is the background. And we've got that sense of depth because of that haze from the rain. And I think if we did have more blacks in the Opera House, I don't think it would work as well, because then the dominance of that anchoring point of that strong triangle in the left-hand third wouldn't be so dominant because it would be competing with all the blacks in the Opera House. So I think we need that depth so that we can flow through the image, which is beautifully generated from the rain and from those textures. So I think this is, a decisive moment, well captured, well handled. It's a silver distinction. I encourage you to come up.
Thank you. Melissa's score of 88 is locked in. The current average score is 83. Judges, please rescore now. And it goes to 87, silver with distinction. Thank you, judges. And we're going to have a change. Julie, you've been on for quite a while. Can we have Leslie come back in, please? And Darren, I think. Darren. We're going to bring Chris back in. I know you are having fun. Thank you. And Adam, you can have a for Tony. Yep, thank you. Are you happy to stay, Cam? Yep, cool. No. I know you know to keep it succinct. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 74. And could we have a comment, please? Cam.
I just think the sky's really overworked in this image. I think if the photographer could have another crack at it and just be a little bit more subtle, it'd be a lot more better image.
Thank you. Other judges are nodding. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. By majority, we have a score of 84, silver award. And in fact, you're all quite close together, so we can have a little chat about the photo, but there can't be any challenges, I'm sorry. Maybe Chris?
The author should be congratulated for the innovation in this print. It's presented really beautifully. I very much enjoyed the transition from left to right, where there's a story being told, and it's a great image, so well done.
Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 76. And yes, Cam would like to challenge. Cam's on 81. And you're working with a 76, 75, 74, 73.
We've seen some similar images to this today in treatment and subject matter. I think this one's a little bit above what we may have seen earlier. Really well positioned in the frame, the building, and great handling of the highlight detail and shadow detail. There's detail all through that building, and it's just a nice graphical image. And what really set it off for me was just that tiny little bit of cloud that on the right hand side, which has been handled really subtly and really quite nice. So I think the author's done a little bit more with this image to take it up from professional practice into an award.
Thank you very much. Could we hear from Melissa on 73?
Yeah, so I'm at 73 in professional practice. I enjoy all of the aspects that Cam's mentioned. I would have liked to have seen in terms of the print, I would have liked to have the cloud a little bit lighter, maybe to have balanced the heaviness of the building. I think the lines have been handled really well, but I just feel that I want something more from the image. I want the photographer to bring some sort of dynamic element, and I think that cloud could certainly do it. But I'd like to see it lifted a little bit more. I just find the image very static, and that's why I kind of put it into professional practice, but I'm listening.
Thank you. Could we hear from Chris is nodding? He's on 75.
Yeah, I was on 75, square in the middle of professional practice. There's a lot. I agree the treatment's really great, Cam. Probably for me, there's two elements that I would love to hear you talk about to help me resolve it. The first is there's a little post at the very top of the image that's just nudging the edge, and it gives a tension that it kind of bothers me, where I feel as though if that one post wasn't there, it would draw my eye to that less. Now, the other issue I have is I'm not sure where the photographer wants me to look on this print. The area that keeps, as I'm sitting down looking at it for longer, my eyes drawn to that kind of white panel towards the left because it's the brightest part. And I don't know that it's the feature that supports the image the best. So I agree it's a beautiful image in professional practice, but I'd love to hear some more about it.
Thank you. Back to you, Cam.
We're talking just percentages of difference in what you're talking about in terms of the brightness of the cloud, and even Chris, the brightness of the left-hand side of the building. We're talking very minimal changes to make you guys really happy and get us up into silver. In terms of where you look, I find my eye just flying really nicely around from the top left-hand corner along that top part of the building down to the cloud and then back up around that left-hand side, and it just is really nice circular motion around the image. So yeah, I think it's worthy of a silver, so I ask you to come and join me.
Thank you. Cam's score of 81 is locked in. The current average score is 76. Judges, please rescore now. Thank you. And by majority, it goes to 80, silver award. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. By majority, we have a score of 80, silver. Thank you. And we'll just get a comment from the entrant, Tony, on 82.
The colour palette in this is beautiful, and the detail in this is also exquisite. You go in there, and the contrast between the dry creek bed, and then you've got this civilization, and then of course Uluru in the back. It's been handled really beautifully. It's printed well, and it's a good solid silver.
Thank you very much. And next print, please. Sorry. Can I just... We still have the... can we have a blank screen, please? My apologies. We just have a little glitch in the system here. Could I... Cam, can you... No, you're not. Yes, you can. Are you able to just re-enter 82 into your keypad? Leslie, can you re-enter 84? Has yours gone on to the next screen? No. Okay. All right. Leslie, are you able to enter a score? 84. Can you put in 84? And Melissa, can you put in 76? Tony, can you put in 82? That's going to mess with the final score for that last photo. Cam, you're not able to backspace? No. Right. Just a moment. Thank you. Thank you, judges. Sorry for that. We just had a little technical glitch there, and we wanted to make sure that the print was dealt with fairly, because as soon as the next scores started to go in, it altered the outcome of the previous print, which we don't want. And the entrant would not have been happy with, because they got a silver award and they were about to not get a silver award. Thank you. Can we have the print back, please? So if you can refresh your vision and come and assess this print with fresh eyes, and then enter your scores. Thank you, team. Very close together, an average score of 77. And could we have a comment, please? Melissa, thank you so much for volunteering.
I think with this image, I enjoy the pier, but there is a I'm really dragged to either side because of the highlights. So really, when you're looking at these sort of images, direct us with your tonal range to where you want us to actually look at. Whereas in this one, there's 3 separate elements, and we're fighting between those ones.
Thank you very much, Melissa. And that is the finish of the open category for landscapes, and we are now going to go straight in. Sorry, I'll just ask my judges. Does to have a little coffee break? We have a lovely team of reserves behind us here, or are you happy to roll straight into the single? Yep, and then I'll just start rotating you all again after that. So let me just read out to the landscape and so just to refresh, landscape images may depict the natural or urban environment. Entries may be interpretive, in other words, not be a literal image of a scene. Judges will be asked to consider both traditional and contemporary values, camera technique, print quality, composition and light. And capture entries may utilize all post-production, excluding the addition of any new elements to the original capture. This includes borders and textures. Okie dokie, first print please. Thank you. I'll just try and refresh it from here. No, see what the problem is. Not started. It's because it's a new category. Now is it there? Lovely. Can we have the print back, please? And please enter your scores. Thank you. We have an average score of 69. And Chris, no, you're Adam. I was going to say, can we have a comment from you, please?
I can't do his no, that's terrible. I think just the presentation. I feel like the tonal range is missing in a lot, especially in the highlights. It's a very contrasty image, and maybe a little more control throughout the tonal range may help us see into the image a little bit better.
Very much, Adam. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 76. Cam would like to challenge. Cam's an 83. You've got a 77, 2 75s and a 71.
I think the photographer's done a really fantastic job compositionally here, and also just in the print treatment, and the subtle colour tones are beautiful. The repetition of the tones on the building and again in the boat on the right hand side, that sort of rusty red and orange tones just contrast really beautifully with the background and that blue, subtle blue in the sky and the water. And then you get those little sitting on the posts on the left hand bottom corner, which is just that little bit of extra element to it. I think, the photographer's done a really great job of capturing a probably rather banal scene and turned it into something quite beautiful. That's I get a really, really lovely feeling just watching that, looking at this image. So yeah, please, love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. Leslie's on 71.
Yes, it's a quite an interesting scene, but I'm struggling with the composition. The brightest area is on the green grass and on the bow of the old boat. So the birds are in the dark. You know, there's no light there to, you know, draw your attention to them. That's just something that you have when you get up there. But I guess the biggest problem for me is once you get the hint of it, this is, you know, in an old, probably Australian island culture. So you're going down the left, you know, around to the boat, but then you go straight out to sea and there's nothing there. And there's a big piece of real estate in the image which is vacant and not telling us any information. So that's where I'm struggling with it as a landscape image, is composition.
Thank you. Melissa on 77.
Thank you. Yeah, I was obviously on 77. I'm going to come up. I think for me it has a very minimalistic, empty, living sort of feel. But what I enjoy about it is compositionally. I just saw the cloud. I love the cloud that's in the shape of waves and crests, and compositionally I just flow from the edge of the building down to the birds, to the boat, back up to the sea and the cloud, and I'm just constantly circling, and I feel very resolved, very peaceful, and I think that's what this image is about. There's tension in putting it inside a square and finding me constantly circling. So yeah, I'll go up to silver.
Thank you. Cam, back to you.
Thank you, Melissa. Peaceful was what I was searching for before than my feeling in this image, and I agree. Lovely flow, circular flow around here. The reason the boat is the brightest part of the image is because it's the hero of the shot. It's the old retired boat that's been put to rest on shore, and that's why we've got that little bit of an empty feeling in the composition, because it's put to rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Cam's score of 83 is locked in. The current average score is 76. Judges, please rescore now. And it goes to 81, silver award. Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a silver award at 82. with 2 83s and 3 82s. That's confusing to say, isn't it? Okay. Yes, we'd love you to make a comment, please, Melissa.
I think there's a really beautiful quality to this image, and obviously that's why it scored a silver award. But with a graphic image like this, there's actually bowing in the print, there's rippling in the print, and when you've got something that is so graphic, it really impacts the way that we look at it. So always make sure that you've got that completely flat and sealed at the back. So because in this kind of image, it makes us really look at the lines and double check things.
Right, we've got another couple judges nodding. Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 68. And there's 2 automatic challenges. So maybe just in fairness to the photograph, we should have a little conversation about it. I know it's out of award contention, but just to really give some feedback. We don't have to have a long-winded conversation about it, but just to give some feedback to the entrant. I'm going to accept Leslie's score on 78. We've just got such a large score range from 55 to 78. So I think in fairness to the entrant, if we can just give them some information. So Leslie, if you can give us a comment, then we'll go to Melissa and Chris Anderson at the end.
Yes, look, I think this is a very interesting location. But I'm finding that my eye is jumping around all over the place, and there's unresolved questions about, is that a cloud? Is it smoke coming out of the smokestack? Why is there the bright line and highlight in the sky? The saturation doesn't seem to me to actually suit the subject matter, but anyway, that was my
Thank you.
my interpretation.
Thank you, Leslie. Melissa, a comment.
I scored this 55 in the more work required area. I guess with me, I struggled with the print quality. I struggled with compositionally. It was difficult to know where to look at. I'd love to see lines straightened up a little bit more and really direct us when you're showing us a scene like this. Really direct us with where you want us to look at, from the lines, from the composition. I think it's. I'd like to encourage the photographer to continue on.
Thank you. Chris, a brief comment?
Yep, I'll echo everything that they've said because I agree with all of it. Also very careful to watch the highlights because wherever there's white space, it's quite blown out. So the highlights and the oversaturation is something to work on for the future.
Thank you. And just very briefly then to clear our system, judges, if having listened to the comments, could you please re-enter change them as you require, and we'll announce a final score. And the print goes to 66, so I'm sure they'll find the comments useful. Thank you for doing that. Next print, please. Thank you, team. We have an average score of 71, and if we could just get Cam, make a comment, please.
Yeah, really interesting scene, but I think the photographer hasn't done it quite justice, the all the image, well, the most interesting part of the image is at the top half with those umbrellas suspended. The bottom third of the image, there's really nothing really to hold our attention. So maybe reworking a composition might improve that.
Thank you very much. And we're going to have a set of judge changes. So thank you, Melissa, Tony and Cam. You've done a great job. If you can sit in the reserves. And we're having Darren, Julie and Adam to come back and join us. Thank you, team. You're doing a great job. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a silver award, 81. And Leslie, I would love you to make a comment. Thank you.
This is one image that I would have loved to have seen printed a little bit bigger, because it's very hard for us to actually make out what the little tiny things are in the image. So if it was full bleed across, you're going to get a lot more, more information to
More
the judges.
value. Okay, thank you. Next print, please. We have a silver award, 80. And Julie, a comment from you. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the very flat landscape here, but also the humour that there ain't too much to burn in that image. And there's just all this scene behind, but here's a fire department with nothing to do really.
Okay, thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 74. And Adam, thank you. A comment?
A fairly reasonably iconic location. You applaud the author for trying to create a concept, and I think I'm a little blocked that it's the figure on the plant on the right that sort of intersects with the man-made elements that I think stops that narrative from really flowing through. But it's professionally presented and nice attempt at the concept.
Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you. We have an average score of 77. Leslie would like to challenge. Leslie's on 83. You've got a 78, 77, 75.
I think the subject matter here is very strong, and you've got the foreground being the coal barge feeding the power stations in the background. So, what I'm enjoying with the composition of this is that your eye goes to the coal barge, which is punctuated left and right with the lights reflecting on the river water. Your eye just goes back to further reflections leading into the actual power station, which then feeds all of the smoke and steam into the atmosphere. This is sort of bordering on it's almost black and white, but it is, and you've got that duplicity, between the dark and the colour, which is quite intriguing. I think the clouds, not the clouds, the steam and smoke in the background has been particularly well handled. That's the brightest part of the image, which is the end result of the production. So the print quality looks to me to be, well done, but I really love the subject matter, the way it's been treated, and where the highlights are just sort of leading your eye around, and a great subject matter.
Thank you. Chris on 73.
So from a distance compositionally, I really like this. The color palette suits the subject matter. It feels there's choices that have been made about making it dark and gritty. What I really wanted to see was some detail in the blacks, and you get up to that coal, and the coal is there's a narrative here, and the coal is the villain, and you can't see any detail in those piles, and I wish that had been there for me. I'm not sure the print has been handled the way that I would like to see it, because I want to see some detail there. There is a lot to love about this, and I'm prepared to move up, but I want to hear some more information from other people first.
Thank you. Darren, a comment?
Sure. I get the subject matter. I get the idea that there's a process here that we're trying to explain. It's actually, to me, the barge looks like it's just going past. It doesn't seem to be actually contributing to the problem. It only just seems to be flowing down the river. I'm not convinced about the darkness and the night that I have in the foreground and the almost day I have in the sky. So while I think there's an attempt to give us something there, it's almost like the processing has been done for sake, and it hasn't been done to contribute to the story. I think some more detail in the shadows would help that. There's a few things that need it to be able to go to the point where it's actually communicated what is actually in the scene. So.
Thank you, Darren. Adam, a brief comment to add?
I find myself conflicted over the palette choice here, and like you say, the colours. The story is in the front and in the back, yet the colours and where my eye is drawn is everywhere in between those two parts. And I feel like I'm being led away from the actual story rather than and onto it. So that's why I'm conflicted by that palette choice there.
Thank you. Back to you, Leslie.
Yeah, I'm wondering how the photographer would do this any differently, though. I think if you had more detail in the blacks, more light on the coal in the foreground, your eye's going to be jumping there, and then the background, and then foreground, the background all the time. So I think that the coal barge sort of being horizontal, in the image, it's not a problem, and it being dark is just enough to give you the information about the story, which sort of sits behind, which is the brightest part of the image. So I do understand what you're saying about some of the technical aspects with it, but I think the attempt to tell this story has been done in such a way that it is a very successful piece of communication. What you were saying about the nighttime and the daytime, the dark in the foreground, the lighter sky, I
Thank
think
you,
when you've got
Leslie.
so much steam and cloud and smoke there, that is
Leslie,
generating its own
wrap it up.
reflection.
Yeah, can you wrap it up?
Reflective nature.
Can you wrap it up? Thank you.
So I would like 2 more people, please.
Thank Leslie's score of 83 is locked in. She was very much on a roll there. The average score is 77. Judges, please rescore. Thank you. The average score does go up by 1 point to 78. And very important, it can be worth it. Thank you. Next print, please. Remember, concise comments, please, judges. Thank you. We have an average score of 81, silver award. And a comment, Darren, thank you.
The thing that I really enjoyed about this image is that I feel like I'm sitting in the ice cave and looking out, and the photo's taken me into that location. The air conditioning might be a bit cool today, and it might have helped. But I probably would have gone further if there was a little bit more treatment on the roof of the cave, and somehow if the ice on the top left had been sharp, that would have been great. That was unfortunately, I was really disappointed when I saw that. So.
Okay, thank you. Good feedback. Next print, please. Thank you. Scores, please, judges. Don't listen to them. This is our room. Oh, now they're just deserting the ship as well. Really? Stop it. Okay. Right. We're going to look at the lovely photograph that we've got to judge, and it's got an average score of 78. And, well, there's one judge that can judge it, but unfortunately that's Leslie on the lower end of the range. So we're happy to finalise the score. Yes, Leslie, thank you. Adam, you're welcome to make a comment.
I enjoy the confusion of scale that you see here, especially from back from the print, and then when you get, you can see all the different sort of aspects of the height and the shadows coming down and the runs going across. But yet there's still this really lovely confusion. Is it detail? Is it a wide shot? It's never really fully resolved, and until you can sort of get up right up there and you're rewarded with all that little detail. So I really enjoyed how it was presented.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. scores, please, judges. Thank you. We have an average score of 76, all quite close together. Chris, a comment, please.
It's a well-seen image. To an extent, it took me to that location, and I could feel some salt spray. The color palette confused me. I feel like if that was a little more true to life, it would have brought me into the image more. So that's something they might want to consider if they take it to ABBA.
Thank you. Next print, please. Thank you, judges. We have an average score of 74. Again, all quite close together. Adam's going to make a comment for us.
I find there's elements of muddiness in the sky on the sort of top and bottom vignette, and it's reflected that sort of contribute to maybe a bit of an overwhelming palette choice here. Also, I'm not sure that the elements in the bottom left sort of are more of a distraction to that sort of silhouette that we have everywhere else. Not silhouette, reflection that we have everywhere else. So maybe something can be done to tidy that up.
Thank you very much. Next print, please. Thank you. We have a Silver Award 81. And Adam would like to challenge, yes please, on 86. You've got an 85, an 82, 78, 74.
I don't think there's a lot of work here. Again, when we talk about landscapes as art pieces, I think this presents beautifully, and tonally, palette-wise, it's handled very, very, very well. It's a very subtle palette, but the line and the dark line, it draws you right through that sort of critical area, that image where you want going down. And again, I enjoy the confusion of scale that I have here. My mind wanders to this could be a subtle, very very wide look back at water running through river tracks, or could it just be a footprint or a tire print? I'm not entirely sure, but I get a mood of that water moving through, and I think it presents exceptionally well as a brave way of representing what could be a large or a very small landscape.
Thank you. Leslie on 74.
I agree with everything you say. And the ambiguity of it, is it a macro or what is it? It's irrelevant. The colour palette is beautiful. The design is. The top left-hand third of the image, lacking in so much detail, is the thing which is holding me back. I've probably underscored it a little bit, but I'm looking for something else in that top left-hand third to just give me some other balance to the bottom right-hand third, just, to create that lovely balance.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Julie, you're an 85.
I very much enjoyed this, and some colour palettes just totally appeal to you, and this is one of those that I absolutely love. And again, the ambiguity of what it is I was unable to discern. However, I feel like that shape, it almost is like a seahorse coming down. So for me, it gave it an oceanic feel. And as for any detail on the top third, I really don't mind that. There's a slight bit there that just throws you to it. But I feel that division, this sea creature, it just, for me, finishes it off. And it is an art piece. So I'm looking at it like that, an art piece of a landscape. So very
Thanks,
much enjoyed.
Julie.
Deserve it of a silver with distinction.
Thanks. Chris is going to have a brief comment.
I'm on 82. I've had a little longer to look at it now, and it as well as a landscape, it looks like a piece of paper that's been burnt, and that kind of char mark on the top right-hand corner feels like where the smoke would have gone, and that's resolved from me why there's no detail on the top left-hand corner, because it used to be a plain piece of paper, and now it's burnt. So I'm heading up with you in silver distinction.
All right. Back to you, Adam. Anything to add?
I love it when people come up with even more stories than I do, because because now we're talking about a superior piece of communication that can be, yes, it's ambiguous, and yes, it's got a lovely tonal palette, and yes, it has a wonderful design, and these are all things that we should reward for the photography. I think that top left-hand corner is, if we're talking an ocean scene, well, there's the sand and there's the water. Paper, well, there's the unburnt and there's the burnt. I think it's superior communication, and I think what we've heard brings it up into silver distinction, please.
Thank you, Adam. Adam's score of 86 is locked in. The current average is 81. Judges, please rescore now. And it goes to 86, silver with distinction. Thank you. Next print, please. This print scores 75. And Adam, yes, sure.
Creating the concept within the landscape image. I think the architectural element, however, needs to be treated a little bit more better. Let's, if it's going to be architectural, let's make sure it's nice and straight and sort of sits well within the frame. I think that would help within the image.
Thank you very much. And could we have a blank screen, please? This means that we have finished the judging. Could everyone please go into the adjoining room? We're going to do a wrap-up. So can our team out the back please come out? I think you're going to go out as well with Gary. Thank you.